His whole thing was, you know, what you doing in an office? If you listen to what I say, you can run your business from the beach. So why was he in an office upstairs from us?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Was he trying to learn German?
What are you doing here, you goon? Then
he was trying to learn German, yeah. But that might be a bit too specific as to who we're talking about. So, moving on, we'll say hello and welcome to the latest fantastic episode of TriPOD with a very special guest, Paul Hart. So, who's Paul Hart, I hear everyone ask. Do you know who Paul Hart is, Kev?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
Seen him on LinkedIn doing these
His motivational speeches.
heavy on LinkedIn.
heavy?
No, I'm just joking.
Yeah,
Well,
last couple of weeks,
I think we're very similar on LinkedIn, like tentative.
yeah, I
a
dare say
tentative tool.
we're
Couple
going
of
to
nervous,
discuss that as well.
nervous typists. Well, I've written a little thumbnail bio of you, Paul.
Oh, this will be interesting.
So, Paul started out in, let's call the traditional media, Observer and the BBC specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us if there's anything that's wrong.
No.
And then moved into a teaching role at what's now called Newcastle College Group. I don't think it was at the time, but that's the same organisation, right?
Yep.
So I first met you, I'm going to say about 15 years ago at the old Network North events.
Yes,
And
correct.
At the time, you had finished teaching, or were you kind of transitioning? Because you were definitely trading as H Design, which was just you.
Shit, you have done you? Yeah.
Well, I just remember that bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So were you still teaching at the time, or had you kind of already gone totally? Like,
No, I think I
full-time
finished
freelance?
at that time. Yeah.
Aye. So at the same time I met you, I met Chris Henderson, who was trading as Toothpick Design.
Yep.
And then obviously your story sort of converged with Chris, and what I would say is the first of many similarities in kind of our path through business, let's call it, in the last 15, 20 years. You know, you partnered up with Chris, you decided that you were stronger together than apart, and obviously that was the beginning of Cargo, which was 2008, 2009.
5th of February 2009.
There you go. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But what I was going to say was, although that we're technically in different industries, I know that some people would say we're all in digital, but I think what we do is very different. The two businesses, your film and Cargo, despite your film being a little bit older, we've kind of always been having the same issues at the same time, or the same plus points at the same time. Like there's just been a lot of crossover in our experience, even though technically day to day we're doing different things.
Weirdly, you only ever talk about the issues, though, don't you?
Well, that's the fun stuff to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to ring up and tell you about the good things. I'm going to ring up and complain about the bad things. But no, I have actually written here, it's always been like reassuring to me that even though we are doing different things and we have got different challenges, there are some things which are just the same. And there's an element of, you know, obviously Kevin and I can talk about this, but there's a lot of people that are in our friend groups that you just can't talk to because they don't know what it's like to run a business. And, you know, to have that kind of very close crossover in the Venn diagram of our experience has always been interesting. Cargo and your film collaborate quite regularly on projects, and obviously you and I in particular talk quite frequently, so it's always good to like compare notes on the hot topics, one of them being work from home. We've definitely talked about, you know, our thoughts on the strengths and weaknesses of the region, the collaboration within the region, how we either individually or as a group can compete outside the region, and just kind of that whole thing. And just in general, I think about culture of business and what, again, I think we're all quite similar, and I think we've all tried to build businesses that have a certain kind of culture to it, which is usually a positive, but if someone's in the mix that doesn't fit the culture, can be a problem, can't it? So, there's me rambling introduction to you.
It was lovely, that.
It was a good introduction.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Went places I didn't think you were going to go, but yeah, it's good.
I've got photos of that.
Yeah. So like let's talk a little bit about, you know, the early days of Cargo, and how, as I say, you kind of did, obviously a couple of years ago we had the same thing, which was there was us, there was Digital Sidekick Mark, and we said, you know, we're doing our own thing, we're going to be better together than apart. That's what we've been doing now for the last 2.5 years, and it's worked out really well. So was it a similar kind of discussion that you had with Chris that led to Cargo being formed?
Yeah, I think so. I think me and Chris were doing the same thing, essentially sort of freelance designers, and we were introduced via another person at Network North, and they said, you're doing this and you're doing that, maybe you should get together and that'll be a good idea. So we did, and we got on really well, and so we kind of merged resources really. So yeah, we had our grand ideas, and we merged, went really well for about 18 months, and then I think it probably just became frustrating. So frustrating in the fact that maybe it's different ideas of how to grow, how to move forward, decision making between two people. I know clearly there are instances where two people get to make it work really well. I think as an aside from that, we started off in a studio in Sunderland, in Doxford Park, and then we moved to the Bick, which is a little bit closer, and I was living on the other side of the tunnel at the time, and I just had my second child, and it was before we had two tunnels, so those queues were really bad. So I was finding that kind of frustrating as well, and ultimately we decided to kind of go our separate ways, and it didn't take long, which basically we created two folders on a desktop, Chris and Paul, and dropped our clients into those folders, and I think that was one that we had to have a discussion over. So it made it pretty easy to realise actually we hadn't really merged our practices, if you like. We were still sort of quite independent. So yeah, we really amicably went our own ways, and Chris went on and did his thing with Climb, did really well, and I went kind of north of the water and progressed with Cargo.
Who won the discussion about that client then?
Chris won the discussion on that client because I think it was my contact that brought the client in, then he'd done the work, and he'd built that relationship with the client, so it made sense.
So what were the kind of the differences that you were finding in terms of what you wanted to do growth-wise?
I think it was just... Sorry.
No, it's all right. I'm just angling just a little bit.
I think it's just how, whether it was what clients go and get, whether it was should we employ or should we use freelancers. I was really quite keen to try and employ a team and grow a team because I felt as though we'd get more value out of having people under the roof. And I think Chris probably was a little bit more reserved, a little bit less gung-ho maybe. Not that I'd say I'm kind of gung-ho in any way, shape or form. So yeah, he was just sort of taking his time with it a little bit more, which was absolutely fine. So yeah, I always describe it as, if we left, if we went from North Shields to go to London and would get through the tunnel and hit Testo's roundabout, and one person wants to send you down the M1 and the other person wants to go down the A19, and then you just keep going around the roundabout. And I don't think that we were unique in that sort of challenge. I think there's plenty of other businesses that have come across that. So yeah.
Well, I've got kind of either a two-part or just two questions, which is, in your opinion, if you hadn't come together and you'd both just carried on as you were...
Oh, that's a good question.
What do you think? Like, do you think you would have built a team yourself and he might have perhaps carried on, as a one-man band? And then sort of separate to that, but definitely related, is it fair to say that the thing that kept you together for those first 18 months, the value in it was that you just had someone else there that you could kind of, there was a little bit of safety in,
it was like
a
safety net, and you had those conversations and you had the ideas around, we want to be like this. Talk about culture, we wanted to build a certain culture. So yeah, and I think it was just that idea that you could talk each other through it. And I think through any situation you can take learnings from it, positive or negative. So I don't for any 1 minute regret doing what we did to merge that. It was definitely the right decision to do it at the time. And it was really enjoyable for 18 months. But I think ultimately you look like, what does this look like in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? So yeah, I think it was the right thing to do, to go those ways before we got bigger, before it would get more complicated, because we didn't have to involve solicitors and any of that sort of stuff. It was a really easy decision. Like, look, this isn't quite working out the way I wanted it. Let's get out while we can. And I haven't seen Chris for a while. Bumped into him a couple of years ago randomly, but we do keep in touch, and we have kept in touch and met up now and again. So yeah, all good.
Well, that's the thing. It's like yours is genuinely one of the most amicable kind of coming together within partners that I've known in my time in business.
Yeah,
which is good. Really good.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories. So.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We all know them, I'm sure. So yeah, if you hadn't come together on a personal level, how do you think you would have developed?
I don't know. I think we would have got there and we would have grown. It just maybe would have taken a little bit longer. Interestingly, right at the start of Cargo as well, we got offered some investment as well, which we turned down because we kind of wanted to do it our way. And one of the things around that was investment was like, I've got no doubt that you're going to get to where you want to go, but with this investment, you'll probably get there. You'll get there quicker, and we'll help you get there quicker. But we, even to this day, have never wanted to go down that route of taking investment in.
Why? And what you got against it?
I think just losing the autonomy of how we want to do things, and then having to answer to someone else. And again, having heard other stories of agencies that have gone that way, you know, the culture changes. All of a sudden, you are responsible to someone else. People are looking over, saying how you're doing, and you know, similar to you guys, we're not a salesy agency. We've grown organically and we've grown the way we want to do it. And yes, it's taking more time, and you know, we might not be as big as what we could have been, but kind of size wasn't really the aim. It was the idea of doing something that we wanted to do the way we wanted to do it. I think way back, even pre-college, pre-sixth form, I had an idea of like, that would be quite nice to have some sort of little agency. I say a little. Yes, we wanted to grow it, but we are still a small business. In the grand scheme of things. I think we're probably a medium-sized agency of the type of agency we are, but we're still a small business. But yeah, it's that sort of boutique agency idea that we always wanted to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm interested.
Did that answer the question? I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'm interested in like going back to how you started and all this, and I think I said this to you before we started recording. The last time before we started recording. Yeah, like what you think your core skills are, and then how you've kind of developed or used those into managing other people.
There's lots of ground covered in that statement and that question, though.
Can I put a little bit of extra context around it then? Because this kind of feeds into one of my later questions. From the outside looking in, Cargo has developed from, please take it as a face value, a web design agency into a branding agency that also does other things around that to support the rollout of a brand, i.e. online marketing. So it's evolved quite a lot. Is that evolved because you've learned as you went, or is that all stem back to your original skill set, and then, you know what I mean? Like,
so that's really, so we'll go, if we went back to the start, so I did a course which was newspaper design and information graphics. And I always liked high school. I think the only A I got was in CDT, design and technology, which involved kind of card drawing and stuff like that with paper and pens. And then I left high school, went to college, then got a job in a shop, decided I didn't fancy doing that. And it was really boring. And then went back to college. So I was kind of a couple of years older than everyone else in college. Did graphic design firstly for 2 years. Then decided to do the newspaper design course because I really wanted to go to London. And this was a course that was the only course in the country. And everyone who left went and got a job straight away in newspapers, which was amazing. So yeah, and I was kind of shitting it at the start because I didn't use computer. I wasn't very kind of digitally minded. In the first kind of 2 to 3 years, the course was really practically based anyway. So it was very much on learning the craft first and then how to apply that and bring that to life second. So
just like a physical skill.
The physical skill of using a pen and understanding like newspapers and layout. So the idea, as you say, of being a web design agency first. So I worked in newspapers for about 6 months, and then I transferred to BBC News, which was obviously online. So BBC News Online in 2001. That was. So it was about 4 years old at the time. Which was digital work, but still not as a developer. So I'm definitely not one of them. I'm definitely not a developer. So yeah, when we came back, I kind of knew we'd always end up coming back to Newcastle, which is now a boomerang. There's a term for it. People who go away and obviously return. We have a term now, which is nice. And I knew that, you know, there wasn't really a lot of jobs in newspaper design. Hence, moving into digital, thought it would give us a bit more longevity. Then did the teaching bit, which was really good for a few years. So when we started as a freelancer, it was kind of doing more print-based stuff. It was more general design. And then once we started the agency, then people were asking for websites. And it's like, oh, we've got a website project. And getting a website project was class. If we've got a website project, yeah, we've got a website to work on.
Was this still within the .com boom sort of time then, if you're talking?
Well, this was 2009. So don't test us on the dates of the .com boom, because I don't know kind of what that is.
Probably over by then, but there was still some good projects around.
Yeah, still some decent projects around. And, you know, we're not talking intense web stuff. We're talking like brochureware, front end, which is still our kind of core. Little bit of e-commerce and that sort of thing. So, yeah, like digital and building websites very quickly from a cargo point of view, added in behind the traditional design. And then, we built out the brand and stuff from that. And the wider idea around technical search, online marketing, digital marketing. And as we say to clients on a daily basis, those areas are ever merging more and more. So, yeah.
And as that evolution, because you personally have either yourself grown your skill set or hired people that had different skill sets, or have you just been reacting to what the market wanted?
So in terms of recruitment first, like recruiting developers that have got that skill set, as I say, it's certainly not me. And to what clients need. You know, you'd go and talk to someone about a brand or a website, and let's say you talk about a website first, you then start asking if they've got a brand guideline. Are there any guidelines that we need to adhere to on digital? Actually, we don't really have a guideline document. We don't really got a brand. We've just got this little logo. Okay, well, maybe we need to think about that brand bit. So already it's a crossover. Then it's, how do we appear higher on Google? Well, okay, we can take that into account throughout this project. But also then there's the question of, do you need to be high on Google? Is that where your users are, or are they somewhere else? Would you be better placing some content somewhere? Would you be better having a really good content strategy for LinkedIn? Is that the best place for you to be? So kind of understanding those nuances for each client's really interesting. Hence, we've had to mould and adapt to those needs.
But again, you're answering now from the position of being an experienced person. If you wind the clock back 15 years, that's maybe a little unfair because LinkedIn wasn't what it was 15 years ago, neither was Google. But you know what I mean? Like, how much of that is you kind of is driven by you, I suppose, as one of the heads of the business, as the head of the business, and how much of it is just kind of letting nature take its course?
Yeah, because you start and talk as if there was a plan, and there was never a plan. It was kind of like, that's kind of what I do. It's another area
where I feel like we cross over, because our version of what you're talking about is the thing that we now kind of refer to in general as start at the end, which is, well, okay, you need a video made. But who's it for? How is it going to be seen? Where's it going to be seen? That then dictates how it's made. You know what I mean? It's all the same. It's our version of the same thing, which is it's not just about the thing that we know you need. It's about how to think around.
Where's it going to go? How are people going to see it? Yeah.
To make it a success overall. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because we had clients at the beginning. I won't name them, but there was one where we asked them, are you happy with that? Are you going to sign it off? And they said, yeah. And I was like, so you happy with the music as well? They're like, oh, we don't have speakers on our computers, so can't hear it. But yeah, whatever you think.
Yeah. We trust you, it's fine.
It's like, we never actually asked them, where's this going? What are you doing with this? Like, what's the point in it before we started it?
Yeah.
So there are kind of just organic lessons, I suppose, that happen along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously technology changes, platforms changes. We frequently say what we make is effectively the same as it was in 2005, but it's chopped up and delivered completely differently to how it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's driven by the available platforms and technology, isn't it?
So kind of in terms of like winning new work and marketing yourself, was that the same sort of thing? Just building trust with certain people and then going from there?
Yeah, so I think early on, like I knew a few people who had like their own business and stuff, and I thought, well, I can cater a need for them. And we had a sales guy for 1 year exactly, which went really well. Introduced it to some good clients that we've still got now. But then we did also feel, well, actually, if we structure this a little bit more differently, we're still winning work just off word of mouth, and that is still the case. And discussions that we've had, like, yes, we're looking at different ways that we market and promote ourselves, because we haven't really been very salesy or out there or cold calling. We don't have a sales team. So it is very organic in that sense. And that's how we win work, really.
And does that...
You're only as good as your last project.
And is that like the part of the company culture and like what you want to keep it as going forward?
100%, yeah. We would joke about having a bell that we need to ring when we seal a new deal, but we don't have that. And yeah, we have a little celebration if we win a big project. It's always nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very much part of the culture that we don't want to change that to be something where we are driven by, like, obviously we set ourselves targets and we want to grow, but it's not really aggressive.
Mm-hmm. You're not a churn agency. You're not about just piling up the jobs and just get them out the door. You do actually put the care into it. It's
definitely.
More about want to nurture a project than just kind of.
I think ultimately we are, for all, we're a design agency, and we kind of care about design and creativity and digital and how things are presented. We're also we're a relationship business, so it's about dealing with people. We're a people business and getting on with people, and that's always been a focus as well, of making sure that our clients kind of really get value from what we do in the way that they want it as well. So again, probably sometimes to our detriment, we haven't got, this is our process and you've got to sing to our hymn sheet, if you like, that sort of thing. We will work with clients in the way that's best for them. And it does make things difficult sometimes because every client's different and we end up treating every client differently. Yes, there's the sort of spine to that, there's the creative process, but that's where we really do try and work with the client on their level in the best way that's going to get the job done.
So have you lost any clients adherent to that?
No, I don't think so. I think I wouldn't say we've lost clients. We've maybe chose not to work with some clients based on, the longer you've been in this business, the more you kind of can see the red lights when a client comes along. And as with every agency I know, we have all been burned in the past.
Yeah.
So you kind of can see those ones come and think, actually, it's probably best to swerve this one. So I wouldn't say we've kind of lost people from being too harsh on that approach.
I'll tell you what, as usual, when we're talking to Paul, it's just sounds very, very familiar,
Yeah.
Very familiar, yeah. Including the bell. We've been talking about getting a sales bell as well.
Yeah.
So, like, in terms of, just going back to you again, in terms of, like, the managing your people side of things, like, how have you found that? Because obviously you started on your own, get a few people in, like, what's that journey been like? Because none of us got into this to manage people.
No, we didn't know. Like, why did you get into it? Did you get into it to make loads of money? No. But like, why did you guys start your film? Because you loved moving images and wanted to.
Well, the original idea was that we knew how to make stuff, and what we really wanted to make was like short films and features and like commercial types films.
Yeah.
So we just thought if we can get enough kit and stuff together, and make a bit of money on the corporate side, we'll then have the resources to do the things that we actually want to do. We've never had time to do any of that stuff because it just took over. But that was the original intention. But ultimately, it was just like, we know how to put these things together. So let's try and find some people that'll be able to do it. There was no thought about, well, how much money can we make? It was just, can we make any money doing this?
Let's make some money.
Yeah. That was the question. The big one at the beginning.
Managing people, like, that's for me, that's become, I don't want to call it a hard part of the job, but it's a challenging part of the job. Because whilst we're a people business with our clients, like, also we have to look after the people that are working for us. And some of the areas that throws up, like, it's been funny the last couple of months we've said, getting work now isn't the fear. At the very start, it's like, how we're going to make enough money to pay enough money so I can pay myself. Then it's, how do we pay for a member of staff? How do we make and that's kind of how you grow, right? More the headaches now is like, right, like we had it yesterday morning. We need to relay out the office so we can get an extra desk in, and that that was. It sounds weird, but that was tough.
Yeah.
Like how do we make sure that
about 3 months ago?
How do we make sure that everyone's happy with where they are?
Mm-hmm.
When I was at the college, there was a girl in the studio who hated having her back to the studio. She had to have her back to the wall, otherwise it would really kind of increase her anxiety. So, and that cropped up yesterday. There's a glare from the window. Okay, so we need to move it so we don't have the glare on the screens. Obviously, that's a production thing as well as a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, is someone going to be happy sitting this way, sitting that way? So these weird small challenges as a medium agency, small business, are still at play. Managing the people side of stuff, I think it's great to get a team where, you are all, you've got that common goal in sight. And I kind of don't like the term leader. Sort of said that a couple of weeks ago. Don't particularly like that term leader, because I don't feel as though I'm the guy that stands at the front and shouts and screams and bawls. And I'm certainly not the guy that shouts and screams and bawls if something goes wrong. Because
Kirsty's job.
That's it. Yeah, totally. She doesn't shout at anyone else but me, though. There are members of the team where they've come from places where the culture has been that, and they were literally prepared to leave industry and go back to working in a pub or just getting a general job, which is a real shame. So yeah, I think it's creating a culture where people are happy we've got a good working environment and people are happy to come to work and be part of a team and produce their best work. And I guess that's kind of our job, isn't it? Is to provide the best environment possible for people to come in and work.
I think to be doing the good work, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
People do need to be in the right headspace,
yeah,
to be able to produce the most creative stuff possible.
It's creative. It's creativity involved. You can't, to some degree you can kind of force it, but you can't ultimately.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain kind of environment,
yeah,
and atmosphere basically to be able to be properly creative.
And it's
it
is also interesting in terms of, and when I think about where I go with this one, there's levels of creativity, isn't it? Like we are a creative agency, but we're not going out and like putting forward for D&AD pencils or massive ad campaigns for large multinationals. We are creative in our own way for the clients that we work for. When we started, there was a lot of professional services, and we still do quite a few professional service clients. We look after them, a lot of engineering firms, but now it's changed where we're with a lot of companies in different sectors, and we can still kind of apply the skills that we've learned to all of those companies. So yeah, I think the creativity thing is something that we talk about a lot, because design is at the heart of what we do, and that has to flow through everything else that we do within the agency. In terms of bringing ideas to the table, and we'll always say that anyone can bring an idea in, whether it's a client who has their own idea of what something should look like, or a member of the team that's maybe in an ideation session that chucks something at the wall and says, right, what about if this works? So it's being open to everyone's ideas as well, and bringing those to the front.
Have you got like one really memorable project that maybe like helped shape where you went as a company?
This might tie in. One of my questions in general was growing pains. What was
loads of growing pains,
or early challenges? So it might be.
See, mine was a positive one.
Yeah,
he's flipped it. He's flipped it.
That's kind of the negative. Interestingly, we interviewed someone yesterday, and they had that question, which was a really good question from a junior designer. Like, what was your favourite project? They're all favourite projects for me, because it's what goes out our door, isn't it? Like, and yes, they won't all go on the website and be promoted. And not every project makes you loads of profit, and quite often the most creative projects don't have any profit in them. Like, there's lots of other projects that bring you enjoy them in different ways. And I used this in a talk recently. We did a thing for Alan Shearer, which was really good, when we've got a dev and a designer who supports Sunderland, and they had to work on an Alan Shearer project. But we've got another designer that worked on it who got to go to do and meet Alan Shearer, which again got paid nothing for that project, but it was a chance it was like a passion project. Mm-hmm. Intrinsically, it was really good for all of us. Likewise, we did another project for Sir Geoff Hurst. So from someone who loves football to be able to go and do that, and then I took my dad to meet Geoff Hurst twice now. Like they were really good projects as well.
Yeah.
They're not the big ones, but they're still really nice things to do.
But that's the thing, innit? It's like you likely can't remember now what you got paid for, pick any project you want off the list, but you can remember the experience you had on it. That's the thing that actually carries through.
I remember the very first one that I did as freelance, which was for I had a friend who knew someone in Northumberland County Council, and I did the project for extended services where I had to do a folder with some inserts, and I ended up doing the photography for myself as well. Stayed up all hours, took a long time, worked out the money on it, and got paid absolutely nothing for it. But I've still got the folders in the studio now, and that's still a project that kind of stands out. It's probably one of those things where you think, actually, yeah, this is something real for a decent client, where we've got a decent print run, and it might move on to something else.
Tangible evidence in your hand that you made a thing, and it's out there in the world. Yeah, definitely. We actually, for a little while, we're fighting against the tide, frankly, but we did experiment a little while with making physical, like, branded up DVD boxes and stuff, so that when a project was over, we'd give a client, it was branded up as your film, but it was like, there's the master, if you like, of your film, and it's something you can put on your shelf. It's something that you actually made.
Just come back to
CDs and DVDs.
Just come back to the football for a second, though, and just speaking about like perks of the job. It would be wrong not to have a look at this little clip.
All right, what's this then?
I don't know if you've seen this before.
Is this the slow-mo one, or is this the full speed one?
I'm not sure. Let's have a look.
Oh, you've done well to dig this out, because it takes me a long time every time to find it, unless it turns up every year.
You know what you know what I love about it? It's he's looking up. He's looking up the whole time. He's already beaten you. Stop chasing him. He's past you.
Check that out.
Pure sports psychology.
There you go. Are you playing it again? Nice.
Nah, well, it just froze.
That first touch is terrible, though, isn't it? It's a horrendous first touch. There you go.
Mogged.
The guy fell over. Spot on. Amazing. Absolute tech as that. Cool.
Love that clip. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Kev. Appreciate it.
little stroll down memory lane there.
Make sure that's full.
I wish they still did that, though. Play on the pitch.
Apparently, you posted that almost to the day, 7th of July, 2011.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
So, looking at cargo a little bit more.
Right.
So on your website now, it says...
God.
What does it say on page?
I'm worried that what you're gonna pull. Because what actually
So I've been looking at your environmental policy.
Yeah. What's our carbon footprint?
On the front it says delivering creative brand experiences through design and digital solutions.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What's the message?
What does it mean?
So interestingly, we reworked that messaging a few years ago, because we found that we were talking to clients and they didn't realise the sort of breadth of work that we did, and we wanted to do more brand work. And then you then come across the idea that actually everything we do is brand, whether it's a website or whether it's a bit of print, like it all falls under a brand. So the digital experiences, again, we're doing a lot more within social now, and within organic search and stuff like that. So things start with brand, and we deliver digital experiences, and I'll blame that one on Carl. He came up with that line, and it suited.
Well, hey, it is tough to come up with something that it does explain everything, because it's always crazy when you can work with a client for years, and then you've found they've gone to someone else for a certain thing, and you're like, well, do you
not know that we did that? It's like we think it's all over the website that we can deliver print for you, or do that exhibition piece.
But no one's reading your website.
Yeah, no one goes.
No one reads.
No one reads anymore. That's a problem.
That's true. Yeah.
Interesting though, after we did that, and we did start winning bigger branding projects when we repositioned the way we presented the work for clients that we'd done, that we'd delivered for. And we had that line. We did start winning work.
Good.
Winning work, winning more work, bigger work, the right work, all of that.
Yeah, great.
How we do for time, Matt? I'm conscious you're on.
We've got 10 minutes. Yeah.
10 minutes, all right. Sweet.
Well, the two things I want to talk about are the collaboration / competing interregionally and with the rest of the UK, and then the work from home stuff. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about.
Yeah, go for it.
Aye, so two sort of, I don't know, hot topics. One of them's a hot topic, the other one's just a kind of an ongoing thing. So we've talked a lot over the years about there's always some kind of movement, there's been various organisations, networking groups, all kinds of things. That's all about trying to get smaller agencies to collaborate with each other.
Yeah.
And I think we've probably both had the same experience and opinion of them, which is nice idea, seems to just recycle itself every couple of years. They put a different name on it, but it's usually the same people behind it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think the intention behind it is good, but I don't ever really see any true... I mean, we collaborate because we've worked together and that works, but, like, there's an element of kind of... I suppose it's us against the world kind of thing. The baked into it is this idea that somehow the Northeast is a poor relation and we have to band together to compete against the rest, you know, London predominantly, but the rest of the UK. Just in general, kind of where do you land on that? What's your thoughts on that? Because we obviously predominantly tend to work with clients who are based more local, as I think a lot of agencies do. But, you know, we work, when people ask where do you work, it's like we work with anyone anywhere, really.
Yeah.
And the technology means that you don't have to. I mean, it's harder to go and film something in Africa than it is in Gateshead. But that aside, you can technically work anywhere. And obviously, from your perspective, you could genuinely work with anyone anywhere. So, how do you find all that?
So yeah, I would say 90% of our clients are in the Northeast region. To be fair, we do have some client. Well, clearly the other 10% outside the region nationally, some internationally. It's an interesting one in that, like you say about the Northeast being that kind of poor relation thing. When I worked in London, there was genuinely people who still believed that Newcastle was full of flat caps and whippets. And I had a boss who knew how to get anywhere within the M25, whether it be bus, tube, overground, anything outside the M25. I had no idea the concept of how long it would take to get anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I used to have this running thing of like journalists would come up saying, "Oh, what's in the north?" and then they'd point to Manchester. I was like, well, that's not the north. We're the north. Manchester's still kind of near the middle somewhere. So we work with other agencies, which is brilliant, and I think it's one of the best things that we can say about ourselves is that other agencies will trust us with their work. We work with two agencies in London, well, one in London, one in Brighton. So we are fortunate that we get to kind of go down there and deliver some of their projects with them. It is an aim that would like to do more outside of the region. And that's always been an aim. I think it's only now that we're starting to see the time to really kind of target on it. So that is one of the key things for this year, is to do a bit more outside the region, which we are, which is good. The collaboration thing I think is interesting because I do think it is, since, I'm going to say it post-COVID, there's smaller companies kind of cropping up that are more willing to collaborate with each other, and it's easier.
And new companies that
have
since
like COVID. New companies, it feels like there's more people kind of, whether 1, 2, 3 man bands, which is great, that are starting to work closely together. And we've always been one that, you know, we're willing to kind of work with anyone that we can meet up with, have a coffee with, have a beer with, have a chat about a project, and if we can collaborate because there's a complementary skill set, then we'll do it 100%.
So that leads into the true hot topic then, which is, how do you do that? Do you get all in a room together, or do you work remotely? Because obviously we're on record at this point, having done podcasts about it, well, what was the title? Homework Kills Creativity. Nice and subtle. Jeez, you weren't sure where we stood on it.
We've pitched our flag, Paul. Come on.
So our experiences of working with other agencies that are outside our region, generally no problem at all. In that, you know, they're creative agencies as well. So on these projects, they tend to do the design work and we'll do the build and the dev. Lots of Zoom calls, lots of Teams calls.
So by the way, that's a total flip around from where you started. You started all about the design, and now you're at a point where you're collaborating with other people who do the design and you'll do the build.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting, yeah.
I do think we've got quite it's probably where one of our USPs is, in that, away from that relationship, to get the brand and creative as well as digital and build under one roof. I think there's not a lot of agencies of our size doing that really, really well. But yeah, we do, like, that has come round where we'll just do build for people as well. Meeting up with people, I much prefer to be out and about, seeing people in the flesh. Don't get us wrong, Teams and Zoom and all that have helped with doing work with people further afield. But there's nothing better than getting on a train going to London. Like, there was a time last year before Christmas, I literally took a train to London for a day and came back. Did some work on the train, sat in a pub off Covent Garden, worked for 3 hours, met up with one of these agencies, had a few pints, talked about a project, and then came home. And it was generally a really productive day and got a shit ton of work done as well, which was class.
Class as working from home? It's not working in the office.
I think that's just classed as remote working, on the go.
Hybrid.
Yeah. You're going to pull out all the buzzwords now, aren't you?
Flexible.
Yeah, flexible. So, yeah, again, does that answer the question of...
Well, my real question...
Your real question is to get on...
To really put you on the spot, my question is, do you think that cargo... Because we, as I say, we're on record, we don't think that... We think that if our team is in the office, that's not to say that people don't work from home on occasion, but predominantly they're in the office. Mm-hmm. And obviously we've tried it both ways because it was forced upon us like everyone else. But we feel generally like it's just an X factor thing. You can't really quantify it. You just know that there's a level that you're not being able to reach if you're not physically in the same room, because when everyone is in the same room, it happens a million times a day. Person X turns to person Y and says, what do you think about this? And it's just, there's a barrier there if you're not in the same room to do that. So how do you feel about that?
Right, so this is going to be an interesting one because, again, lots of ground to cover.
Yeah.
I've got a few fingers crossed underneath here to try to remember each bit. I think homework was always going to happen, and when COVID came along, it kind of just sped everything up, didn't it? And it got really annoying when everyone was pushing the boat on LinkedIn around, this is entirely normal. We've been doing remote working for ages. This is work, what was it? Work as usual, business as usual. And it wasn't, because it was flipping mental what was going on. So we packed up and sent everyone home. And when we could, as soon as we could, we got people back. People came back in. I do think that people are better together. I think it's better for collaboration, and I think it's better for people's mindsets. I don't think it's healthy that people are sat at home on their own in a room for hours at a time. I think it helps now and again. So we've just recently taken on another studio space across the road because our place is getting busy. And sometimes people need to get their head into something. Mm-hmm. If they want to work from home, if there's something going on where they can't get in the office, it's going to be difficult, of course. People work from home. But I think we've always been flexible about that anyway, in terms of if your kid's got a sports day or you've got an activity or you've got a doctor's appointment or there's something like that going on, I'm not going to force people to take half a day off for that, because I think they have to go and enjoy that moment of their life without feeling as though they've got to take a day's holiday to do it. It
gets back to the culture that you want to establish, that you have established.
And I think when we started, we had a young family, and it was never an aim that we want to be expecting people to work long hours, working late in return for some pizza. As and when needed, yes, it needs to be done, but not all the time. So I struggled with the hybrids thing a lot. It caused quite a bit of stress last year around how can we find something that works for everyone. But ultimately, when we looked into it and the cost that it was going to be for the team or for the business, all the team were on iMacs. They're on static machines. We are gradually turning everyone over to laptops, so people are moving to laptops, which is great. We looked at the insurance side of stuff. We looked at the security side of things, and we ultimately thought, it's better off having people in the studio. We've introduced flexible working hours, so we do have flexi working hours. So if someone wants to go and do the school run, they can do the school run and come in late. If they want to get away early, they can come in early and get away early. We are really flexible in that, but we have the core working hours.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting point there, which again we've talked about before, which is I totally get it from the employee's point of view. Obviously the three of us have said here, no employee is ever going to be as invested in our business as we are. That's just a fact. So I totally get it from any generic employee's standpoint, where they go, well, it's more convenient for me, or I want to work from home. But when you get into literally the kit that you need to do the job properly, and then as the stuff that they would never, it would never cross their mind, because why would it? But all the stuff you talk about, like insurance and other stuff around it, like there are these other practical considerations where I think perhaps it's been overly simplified in the online discussion about, if a boss says you can't work from home, that's just, they're a bad boss. Like that's just, it's just not that cut and dry.
No, it's not. And I think for, again, business like ourselves and yourselves, the size that we are, like if we're 2 or 3 people, fine, we can very easily lift our stuff up and go home. If we're a much bigger company, again, fine, because the resources are there to do it. When we're kind of somewhere in between, it does make things a lot harder. And if we were to just very gung-ho say, right, let's get up and go, it's all well and good until something goes wrong. Someone's machine smashes, you're getting the wave for fire.
Yeah.
Or, client data goes amiss, that sort of thing. Like, that's when I think problems would kind of come
like
about.
Everything else, it's all great until it goes wrong.
Yeah,
and that's when you find out why.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you for a very honest answer there, Paul.
Yeah, I think you've very carefully walked through that minefield.
Really? Well, can I just wrap things up with one last question?
Yeah, you can do.
It's a short
we can
one.
keep talking if you want, just let him go.
That's fine. Yeah.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
A classic question.
If I could give my younger self one piece of advice,
how young?
What would it be?
He can choose.
Oh, okay.
I kind of want to say don't care as much about everything, because I was always a very kind of, if I think about either my group of friends or the people that I met in college and the stuff that they went on to do, like I was always very kind of careful about the way we did things. I was quite a safe pair of hands. Kind of follows through to what Cargo are now. Like, we are a safe pair of hands for people. Like there's some people who went to college, went on and did some amazing stuff and got into really high positions, and people who were taught went on and did some really, really good stuff that I obviously never did. And I think it was just a different mindset, whereas my mindset was very one of, taking into account the risks against the rewards, et cetera, and I would probably take the safest kind of route possible. Whereas if at the very start you kind of could get those shackles off a bit and not care as much, then
I mean,
do you know what I mean?
I think you'll always get.
Does that make sense?
What you're saying is take more risks in it, because you'll always care. But you're just saying just be a little bit less cautious, take a few.
Little bit less cautious, probably the best way to put it.
That's the toughest thing. I think that really is the toughest thing to do, though.
Yeah.
Because it's. Well, the safety
when you're living
it's almost not thinking about the what ifs.
Yeah.
Don't think about the what if that happens. Well, chances are it won't happen. Yeah, but what if it does happen? Maybe we should be a bit.
Specifically what you're describing there is you're only thinking about the negative what ifs, aren't you? You're not really giving yourself the room to consider the positive what ifs.
Exactly. And as we're chatting here, I'm thinking with the time, like, this conversation could go on and on, but.
Well, you can come back and do part 2.
We'll do part 2, 100% if you want to.
Yeah, come back for a third time.
To do third time. To do the next one.
Yeah, well, no, I think that was a nice way to end it, actually.
Yeah, it's been brilliant.
Sweet. Thank you.
To be honest.
Thank you for coming back again.
Yeah. No problem.
Appreciate it.
Told you we'd get you on here eventually.
Took a little while, but there you go.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Kev's going to do an outro now, because I do the outros normally.
Well, yeah, you do the outros normally, which is why you're going to do it again, because it's funny.
Do you know what I've got to say, Paul? Do you know what he makes us say?
Don't
People
say
can't
it.
say it under the table. He's like pinching us.
Go on.
Well, what do people have to do at the end of a podcast, Paul? What have they got to smash?
Like and subscribe.
There you go. There you go. Smash one, hit the other, take your pick.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.